The gift of mercy. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with soft alien voices as representatives from 12 species gathered around the crystal table. Ambassador Keth from the Velari Empire stood tall, his blue skin glowing with pride as he presented the latest act of cosmic charity. "The humans of Earth suffer greatly," Keth announced, his voice carrying across the chamber. "Their primitive bodies feel pain in ways we evolved beyond millions of years ago. Every injury, every illness brings them agony we cannot imagine." The other ambassadors nodded with sympathy. The Quinn representative, her multiple eyes blinking in unison, spoke softly. "We have observed their medical facilities. They scream during procedures that would barely tickle our younglings." Ambassador Wren from the Torque Federation leaned forward. "Their wars are especially brutal. They continue fighting even when wounded, driven by chemicals their brains produce. It is both horrifying and fascinating." The decision came quickly. The advanced species had resources beyond measure, and helping a struggling world seemed like the right thing to do. They would gift humanity a miracle drug that would eliminate physical pain forever. The Velari. Medical ships descended through Earth's atmosphere 3 months later. Major Tom Richards stood at the landing site, representing the human government. He was a simple man with weathered hands and kind eyes, chosen more for his honest nature than his diplomatic skills. "We bring you freedom from suffering," Keth explained as alien medical teams unloaded containers of the miracle drug. "This compound will block all pain receptors in your nervous system. No more agony from injury, disease, or medical procedures." Tom scratched his chin thoughtfully. "That's mighty generous of you folks. But what about the side effects?" "There are none," Keth replied confidently. "We have used similar compounds for centuries across multiple species. Your people will thank us for generations." The distribution began immediately. Hospitals received the drug first, then military units, then civilian populations. Within weeks, a third of humanity had received the treatment. The results seemed miraculous. Soldiers fought with incredible bravery, no longer hindered by fear of pain. Surgeons performed operations that would have been impossible before. Athletes pushed their bodies to new limits. The alien observers watched with satisfaction as human suffering decreased dramatically. But Tom Richards noticed something the aliens missed. He was drinking a beer with his friend Jake at their usual bar when the first signs appeared. "You know what's funny?" Jake said, taking a long sip from his bottle. "I got the pain treatment last week, but this beer still tastes amazing. Better than amazing, actually." Tom raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Well, I can't feel the burn in my throat anymore, or the bitter bite on my tongue. But somehow I can taste. More, like I'm tasting the happiness the beer brings instead of just the liquid." Other patrons began sharing similar experiences. The local brewery owner, an old man named Bill, reported that people were buying beer in quantities he had never seen before. Not to get drunk, but because they claimed it gave them something the pain drug had taken away. "It's like they're drinking memories," Bill told Tom. "They sit there with their beers, and they get this look in their eyes, like they're remembering what it felt like to be completely human." The alien observers documented these drinking patterns with clinical interest. They noted that beer consumption had increased by 300% in treated populations, but they classified it as a minor behavioral quirk. Their reports to the Galactic Council mentioned it only in passing. Ambassador Keth reviewed the data from his ship. In orbit, humans are adapting well to the treatment. Some increased consumption of their fermented beverages, but nothing concerning. They appear to be using it as a social bonding mechanism. What the aliens failed to understand was that beer had become something far more significant. In removing humanity's ability to feel physical pain, they had inadvertently created a gap in human experience. Beer, with its complex flavors and social rituals, had stepped in to fill that void, the treated humans began to exhibit strange behaviors. They would gather in groups, drinking beer and telling stories with an intensity that seemed almost religious. They spoke of old injuries and past sufferings as if they were sacred memories. The untreated humans watched with growing concern as their friends and family members changed. Tom Richards filed his first report to the human government that night. He wrote in simple words that would prove prophetic. "The aliens gave us a gift, but I think we're about to show them what we can do with it. Something tells me they're not going to like what comes next." The first phase of humanity's transformation had begun, and it all started with a simple beer. The awakening 6 months after the treatment, the changes in humanity became impossible to ignore. Tom Richards sat in his office, reading reports that made less sense each day. Treated humans were performing feats that should have been impossible. In Tokyo, a construction worker named Dave had lifted a steel beam that normally required 3 men. In London, a nurse named Lisa had worked for 72 hours straight without showing any signs of fatigue. In New York, a chef named Mark had created dishes with flavor combinations that food critics called supernatural. But the most interesting reports came from the bars and breweries. "Sir, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Ann Foster, Tom's aide. She placed a video tablet on his desk. "This is from a bar in Denver last night." The footage showed a group of treated humans sitting around a table, each holding a beer. They were talking in normal voices, but something was different. Their eyes held a focus that seemed almost predatory. They were discussing military tactics for a conflict that didn't exist, creating battle plans with detail that impressed even veteran generals. "They're not soldiers," Ann noted. "The big guy is a plumber, the woman is a teacher, and the thin one works at a grocery store. But listen to them talk." Tom watched as the plumber described flanking maneuvers that would have impressed ancient generals. The teacher outlined supply chain logistics that could support armies across continents. The grocery clerk calculated resource requirements with accuracy that matched military computers. "How long were they drinking?" Tom asked. "About 2 hours. They ordered exactly 12 beers between them, no more, no less. Then they left together and went to the public library. They spent the night reading military history books." Similar reports flooded in from around the world. Groups of treated humans would gather in bars, drink beer in precise quantities, and then engage in activities that seemed to unlock hidden potential in their minds. They formed reading groups that consumed entire libraries. They created art that moved people to tears. They solved mathematical problems that had puzzled experts for decades. The alien observers began to take notice. Ambassador Keth stood in his ship's observation deck, watching Earth through the massive viewport. His second-in-command, Vex, approached, with a datapad full of concerning reports. "The humans are changing," Vex reported. "Their cognitive abilities are increasing at rates we didn't predict. They're forming group behaviors centered around alcohol consumption." "That's impossible," Keth replied. "The pain blocker only affects nerve endings. It cannot enhance mental capacity. The data suggests otherwise. Their beer consumption follows precise patterns. They drink specific amounts and engage in activities that seem to unlock abilities we've never seen in their species." Keth examined the reports with growing concern. Humans were displaying coordination that rivaled hive mind species. They were solving problems with intuition that matched computer calculations. They were creating works of art and music that alien critics called transcendent. Back on Earth, Tom Richards called a meeting with the world's leading scientists. Dr. Ellen Price, a neurologist who had studied the pain treatment, presented her findings. "The alien drug doesn't just block pain," she explained. "It fundamentally rewires how our brains process sensory information. When humans drink beer, The alcohol interacts with these new neural pathways in unexpected ways. She displayed brain scans on the wall screen. Look at this. A normal human brain shows standard patterns of neural activity. But a treated human drinking beer shows connections forming between brain regions that typically don't communicate. It's like the alcohol is creating bridges between different parts of consciousness. Tom studied the images. Is this dangerous? Not in the traditional sense. But the implications are staggering. Beer isn't just a drink for these people anymore. It's becoming a tool for unlocking human potential we didn't know existed. The treated humans began to organize. They formed groups based on their beer preferences. Those who drank light beers became incredible coordinators, able to manage complex logistics with ease. Those who preferred dark beers became strategic thinkers, capable of planning projects that spanned generations. Those who enjoyed craft beers became innovators, creating technologies that seemed to come from nowhere. Jake found Tom at their usual bar 3 days later. Jake had been one of the first to receive the treatment, and the change in him was remarkable. His eyes held a depth that hadn't been there before. Tom, we need to talk, Jake said, setting down his beer with careful precision. The aliens think. They gave us a gift, but they don't understand what they've actually done. What do you mean? They removed our ability to feel physical pain, but pain was more than just sensation. It was a barrier, a limiter on what our minds could achieve. Beer helps us access the spaces where pain used to be. And in those spaces, we're finding abilities that will change everything. Tom felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. Change everything, how? Jake smiled, and for the first time, Tom saw something in his friend's expression that looked almost alien. We're about to become something the galaxy has never seen before. The transformation was accelerating. The discovery, the breakthrough, came from an unexpected source. Dr. Ben Torres, a biochemist working in a small laboratory in Mexico City, had been studying the interaction between the alien pain blocker and human neurotransmitters. He was also one of the few scientists who had refused the treatment, wanting to maintain his objectivity. Ben watched his research partner, Dr. Maria Santos, work with treated blood samples. Maria had received the treatment 3 months ago and had developed a peculiar relationship with beer. She would drink exactly 1 bottle every evening while reviewing their research data, and her insights during these sessions were remarkable. Ben, look at this, Maria said, pointing to her computer screen. She held a half-empty beer bottle in her other hand. The pain blocker isn't just blocking pain receptors. It's creating a secondary neural network. Ben examined the data. That's impossible. Neural networks don't just appear. But they do, Maria insisted. The alien compound was designed for species that evolved differently than humans. When it interacts with our nervous system, it creates pathways that connect directly to our brain's reward centers. Beer activates these pathways in ways the aliens never expected. Maria took another sip of her beer, and Ben watched her pupils dilate. Slightly, her posture changed, becoming more focused and alert. The alcohol acts as a catalyst. It allows the new neural pathways to connect with our existing brain structures. The result is enhanced cognitive ability that scales with the complexity of the beer. Ben frowned. What do you mean, complexity? Simple beers create simple enhancements. Better coordination, improved memory, faster reflexes. But complex beers, ones with multiple ingredients and sophisticated brewing processes, create more sophisticated neural connections. The treated humans aren't just drinking beer, Ben. They're upgrading their brains. The implications hit Ben like a physical blow. How many people know about this? More than you might think. The treated humans are sharing information in ways that seem almost telepathic. They're not communicating through normal channels, but they're coordinating their activities across continents. That night, Ben made a decision that would change his life. He took the pain treatment. The change was immediate and profound. Physical. Sensations that had been sharp and demanding became muted background noise. But more importantly, he felt spaces in his mind that had never existed before. Empty pathways waiting to be filled. He joined Maria at their usual bar, ordering a beer. He had never tried before. The moment the liquid touched his lips, the new neural pathways blazed to life. The world became sharper, more detailed, more comprehensible. "Now you understand," Maria said, raising her own bottle. "This isn't just about pain anymore. The aliens gave us access to parts of our brains that evolution locked away. Beer is the key that opens those locks." Around the world, similar discoveries were being made. Treated humans were finding that different types of beer unlocked different abilities. Wheat beers enhanced pattern recognition. Hop-heavy ales improved strategic thinking. Complex stouts opened pathways to creative problem-solving that bordered on the supernatural. The alien observers began to panic. Ambassador Keth paced his ship's bridge, reading reports that made no sense. How is this possible? We gave them a simple pain blocker. The compound has been tested on hundreds of species, but never on humans, Max pointed out. Their brain structure is unique. The pain blocker is interacting with their neural chemistry in ways our models never predicted. What are they capable of now? Vex displayed holographic data showing human activities across the globe. They're forming collective intelligence networks. Groups of treated humans can solve problems that would challenge our most advanced computers. They're developing technologies we don't understand. And they're doing it all while drinking beer. The reports were staggering. Human artists were creating works that alien critics called emotionally weaponized. Human engineers were designing machines that seemed to violate known laws of physics. Human philosophers were developing theories that challenged fundamental assumptions about consciousness and reality. But the most disturbing report came from the military observations. "Sir," a junior officer reported, "the human military forces are changing. Treated soldiers are displaying coordination that exceeds our best tactical units. They're creating battle strategies that our war computers classify as logically impossible, but practically devastating." Kef studied the footage of human military exercises. Soldiers moved with precision that seemed choreographed, but their movements were spontaneous and adaptive. They communicated without visible signals, coordinating complex maneuvers through what appeared to be pure intuition. "How many humans have received the treatment?" Kef asked. "Approximately 2 billion, Vex replied. "And the number is growing daily." Keth felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. The Galactic Council had wanted to help humanity by eliminating their suffering. Instead, they had created something unprecedented. "Prepare a message to the Council," Keth ordered. "We may have made a terrible mistake." The revelation, the message from Earth, reached the Galactic Council 3 days later. It wasn't sent through official diplomatic channels. Instead, it appeared simultaneously on every alien communication device in the galaxy, delivered with a precision that should have been impossible for human technology. The message was simple: we need to talk. Council Chairman Flux, a being of pure energy from the Omega Sector, convened an emergency session. Representatives from all 12 species gathered in the crystal chamber, their concern evident in the way they moved and spoke. "The humans have somehow bypassed our most advanced communication security," Flux announced. "They've sent a message directly to every device in our network simultaneously. Our technicians cannot explain how this was accomplished." "Ambassador," Keth stood to address the council. "Honored members, I believe we have created something we do not understand. The humans are no longer the species we attempted to help." He activated a holographic display showing Earth from orbit. The planet looked different somehow, though the changes were subtle. Lights in the cities pulsed in patterns that seemed almost organic. Weather systems moved in ways that suggested artificial manipulation. The electromagnetic signature of the planet had changed dramatically. They're not just enhanced, Keth continued. They're becoming something entirely new. Our pain. Blocker has interacted with their unique neural chemistry to create abilities we never imagined possible. The Quinn representative spoke with their multiple voices harmonizing in worry. What exactly are they capable of now? We don't know, Keth admitted, but our observations suggest they're developing technologies that violate several fundamental laws of physics. They're also displaying collective intelligence that rivals our most advanced hive mind species. On Earth, the transformation was accelerating beyond anyone's expectations. Tom Richards stood in what had once been his office, now transformed into something that looked more like a command center from a science fiction movie. Screens covered every wall, displaying data streams that seemed to update faster than human eyes could follow. But the humans in the room were following every piece of information perfectly. The aliens are scared, announced Lisa, the nurse who had worked for 72 hours straight. She was analyzing communications intercepts while simultaneously coordinating supply chains for 17 different cities. Their council is meeting right now. Jake, Tom's old friend from the bar, sat at a station that seemed to grow from the floor itself. He was drinking a beer that local brewers had created specifically for enhanced humans. The liquid was darker than any beer Tom had ever seen, with complex flavors that seemed to shift and change as Jake drank. They should be scared, Jake said, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. We're not the same species they tried to help. We're something new. Tom had taken the treatment 2 weeks ago, and the changes in his own thinking were remarkable. Problems that had once seemed impossibly complex now appeared as simple patterns to be solved. He could see connections between events that spanned continents and decades. And when he drank beer, especially the new varieties being created for enhanced humans, his consciousness seemed to expand beyond the boundaries of his individual mind. What do we want from them? Tom asked. Understanding, said Dr. Maria Santos, who had become something like a spiritual leader for the enhanced humans. They need to comprehend what they've created, and they need to understand that we're not angry about it. The response came from across the room from Bill, the brewery owner who had first noticed the strange beer-drinking patterns. He was now coordinating brewing operations across the globe, creating beverages that seemed to unlock specific aspects of human potential. We're grateful, Bill said, his weathered hands working controls that looked like they belonged in a spaceship. They wanted to end our pain, and they did. But they also gave us something infinitely more valuable. They gave us access to what we could become. The room fell silent as the humans processed this concept. Through their enhanced neural networks, they shared understanding in ways that transcended normal communication. They were no longer just individuals working together. They were becoming a collective consciousness that maintained individual identity while sharing thoughts and insights. Send the invitation, Tom decided. Ask them to come down. Not just Ambassador Keth, but representatives from all the species. They need to see what we've become. Are we ready for that? Lisa asked. Jake finished his beer and set the bottle down with careful precision. We are ready for anything now. The question is whether they're ready for us. As the message was transmitted to the alien fleet, every enhanced human on Earth felt a moment of shared anticipation. They were about to reveal themselves to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. The legends were about to begin. The legendary alien delegation landed at the same site where they had first delivered the pain blocker 18 months ago. But the Earth they found was transformed beyond recognition. The landing field was still there, but it was surrounded by structures that seemed to grow from the ground itself. Buildings curved and flowed like living things, their surfaces covered in patterns that shifted and changed as the aliens watched. The air hummed with energy that their instruments couldn't identify. Ambassador Keth stepped off his ship, accompanied by representatives from all 12 species. They had expected to meet with human officials in familiar surroundings. Instead, they found themselves facing something that challenged their understanding of what was possible. Tom Richards approached the delegation, but he was no longer the simple man who had greeted them months ago. His eyes held depths that seemed to contain starlight, and when he moved, he seemed to flow rather than walk. Behind him came a group of humans who radiated the same quiet confidence. "Welcome back," Tom said, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated in frequencies the aliens could feel rather than hear. "We've been looking forward to this conversation." Jake stepped forward, carrying a tray of bottles that contained liquid darker than space itself. "We thought you might want to understand what you've given us. The best way to do that is to experience it." "We don't consume alcohol," Keth replied carefully. "Our species evolved beyond the need for such substances." "This isn't about need," said Dr. Maria Santos, who now seemed to glow with an inner light. "This is about possibility. You gave us access to parts of our consciousness we never knew existed. Beer became the bridge between who we were and who we could become." She gestured to the structures around them. "Everything you see was created by enhanced humans working in collective harmony. We don't just think together now. We dream together. We create together. We've become something that transcends individual consciousness while maintaining individual identity." The alien representatives looked around with growing amazement and concern. The technology they saw was clearly beyond anything humans had possessed before the treatment. But more disturbing was the way the humans moved and spoke. They seemed to communicate on multiple levels simultaneously, sharing thoughts and emotions in ways that suggested a form of consciousness the aliens had never encountered. "What do you want from us?" asked the Quinn representative, her multiple voices harmonizing in nervousness. "Nothing," Tom replied. "And everything. We want you to understand that your gift wasn't a mistake. It was exactly what we needed to become what we were always meant to be." Bill, the brewery owner, stepped forward with a device that looked like a crystalline flower. "We've been developing new technologies. This is a communication system that works across galactic distances instantaneously. We'd like to share it with you." The aliens examined the device with instruments that registered impossible energy readings. The technology was so advanced that their computers couldn't analyze how it worked. "How is this possible?" Keth asked. "Beer," Jake said simply. "The alien pain blocker created new neural pathways in our brains. Beer activates those pathways and allows us to access forms of consciousness that your species abandoned when you eliminated pain from your existence." He took a sip from his bottle, and the aliens watched as his eyes seemed to expand, as if he were seeing things that existed beyond normal perception. Pain wasn't just sensation for humans. It was a teacher, a guide, a pathway to growth. When you removed it, you created space for something else to fill that role. Beer became our new teacher. Dr. Santos activated a holographic display that showed the neural activity of enhanced humans. "We've learned to think in ways that transcend individual consciousness. We can solve problems by sharing the cognitive load across hundreds or thousands of minds. We can create art that touches the soul because we understand emotions at a fundamental level. We can develop technologies that seem impossible because we're not limited by conventional thinking. But the most important thing," Tom added, "is that we've learned to dream together. Human dreams, enhanced by beer and collective consciousness, can literally reshape reality. We're not just using technology now. We're becoming technology." The alien representatives stood in stunned silence as the implication sank in. They had tried to help a primitive species by eliminating their suffering. Instead, they had created something that surpassed their own capabilities. "What happens now?" Keth asked. Tom smiled, and in that smile, the aliens saw the birth of a new age. "Now we explore the galaxy together. We've learned that consciousness isn't individual. It's collective. We'd like to share that gift with you." "After all," Jake added, raising his bottle in a toast, "you taught us that the best gifts are the ones that transform both the giver and the receiver." The legend of humanity had begun, and it would spread across the stars like a foam on a perfectly poured beer. The End Asterisk.